My family mocked me for being single at 30. The words still echo in my head like broken glass cutting through my chest. Can you imagine? Sitting at your own family dinner table, watching the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally tear you apart piece by piece? The laughter, the pitying looks, the whispered comments they thought I couldn't hear. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have possibly imagined, was that everything was about to change in the most shocking way possible. If you've ever felt like the family disappointment, the one everyone talks about behind closed doors, then please hit that like button because this story is going to take a turn that will leave you speechless. And don't forget to subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Leave a comment too because I need to know I'm not alone in this. Because what happened that night, what they discovered waiting outside, it changed everything forever. I should start from the beginning, shouldn't I? Though honestly, there's no beginning to this story. It's more like a slow burn that finally exploded into flames. The Hartwell family Sunday dinner. Every week, like clockwork, we'd all gather at Mom and Dad's house. The same mahogany table that had witnessed decades of family drama, celebrations, and apparently, my public humiliation. There I was, 30 years old, successful marketing director at a Fortune 500 company, my own apartment in the city, financial independence, but none of that mattered to them. All they could see was the empty chair next to me. The missing +1 that somehow defined my entire worth as a human being. So, Amber, my sister Jessica started, twirling her engagement ring like it was a weapon. Still flying solo, I see. The table went quiet, except for the scraping of forks against plates. Mom looked up from cutting her pot roast, that familiar disappointed expression already forming on her face. Dad didn't even bother looking up from his newspaper. I'm focused on my career right now, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'd practiced this response 100 times in the mirror. Career? My brother Marcus snorted, not looking up from his phone. That's what they all say when they can't land a man. My stomach twisted. Excuse me? Marcus, his wife Sarah, chimed in, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. Don't be mean. I'm sure Amber will find someone eventually. The word eventually hung in the air like a death sentence. Well, Mom finally spoke, setting down her knife with a sharp clink. I just don't understand it, honey. You're pretty enough. You have a good job. What's wrong? Are you being too picky? Too picky, as if wanting someone who respected me, who saw me as an equal, who didn't expect me to shrink myself to make them feel bigger, was somehow a character flaw. Maybe she's one of those career women who intimidates men. Dad mumbled from behind his paper. Men don't like women who think they're better than them. I don't think I'm better than... Oh, come on, Amber, Jessica interrupted, leaning forward with that sisterly concern that felt more like an attack. You do have that attitude, you know? Like you're waiting for some perfect prince to sweep you off your feet. This isn't a fairy tale. Real men have flaws. Maybe lower your standards a little? Lower my standards. I'd heard this before. From dates who showed up drunk? From men who expected me to pay for dinner and then demanded I come home with them. From guys who thought my job was just something I did until I found a husband. There's nothing wrong with having standards, I said quietly. Standards? Marcus finally looked up from his phone, laughing. Amber, you're 30. The good ones are taken. At this point, you're shopping in the discount bin. The discount bin. My own brother just compared me to damaged goods. Marcus. Sarah giggled, slapping his arm playfully. You're terrible. But she was laughing too. What I don't understand, Mom continued, as if she hadn't heard the insult, is why you won't let us set you up with people. Remember Janet's son? The accountant? He was perfectly nice. Perfectly nice. Code for boring but desperate enough to date you. He spent the entire dinner talking about his ex-girlfriend and asking if I had any single friends. I reminded her. Well, maybe if you'd been more engaging. More engaging? The words escaped before I could stop them. Mom, he literally asked me if I was planning to quit my job when I got married. On the first date? And what's wrong with that question? Dad folded his newspaper, finally joining the conversation. A man wants to know if his wife is going to be a partner or a burden. A burden. My own father thought my career made me a burden? Maybe, Jessica said, reaching across the table to pat my hand condescendingly. You should consider that not everyone is going to understand your lifestyle choices. Some compromise might be necessary. Lifestyle choices. Having a career was apparently a lifestyle choice now. You know what I think? Sarah was warming up to the topic, clearly enjoying herself. I think Amber's been single so long, she's forgotten how to be with someone. Like, she's too set in her ways. Too independent. Too independent. The ultimate female crime, apparently. I mean, Jessica added. Look at you. You live alone. You travel alone. You go to events alone. Don't you ever get lonely? Don't you want someone to take care of you? Take care of me. As if I hadn't been taking care of myself just fine for over a decade. I don't need someone to take care of me, I said. I need someone to share my life with. There's a difference. See? Marcus pointed at me with his fork. There it is. That attitude. I don't need anyone. No wonder guys run for the hills. Maybe, Mom suggested gently. You could try being a little more feminine, softer. Men like to feel needed, sweetheart, softer. More feminine, as if my intelligence and independence were somehow masculine traits that needed to be hidden. I am feminine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You know what I mean, Mom continued. Maybe dress differently? Do something with your hair? You always look so professional. Men don't want to date their boss. Professional. Another crime against femininity. And maybe, Dad added, don't talk so much about work. Men like to be the provider. They don't want to hear about how much money you make or how important your job is. Don't talk about work. Don't mention money. Don't be smart. Don't be successful. Don't be myself. This is ridiculous, I finally said, pushing back from the table. I shouldn't have to pretend to be someone I'm not just to find a relationship. Oh, honey, Mom sighed. Everyone pretends a little in relationships. That's how they work. No, I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. That's not how they should work. Amber, sit down, Dad commanded. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? For wanting to be loved for who I actually am? Who you actually are, Marcus said slowly, is apparently someone no man wants to be with. The words hit like a physical blow. My own family. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Who were supposed to build me up, support me, celebrate my accomplishments. Instead, they were systematically tearing me apart. Maybe, Jessica said softly, we're just trying to help. We love you and we want you to be happy. But Amber, you're 30. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. As if my worth had an expiration date. And it's not just about you anymore, Sarah added. Mom and Dad want grandchildren. Don't you want to give them that? Grandchildren. My purpose reduced to being a breeding mare for the family legacy. I might want children someday, I said carefully. But not because it's expected of me. And certainly not with just anyone. Just anyone? Mom's voice rose. Sweetheart, you can't afford to be choosy anymore. Do you want to end up alone? End up alone, as if being single was some kind of tragedy. As if a bad relationship was better than no relationship at all. What's so terrible about being alone? I asked. I have a great life. I love my job. I have wonderful friends. I travel. I'm happy. Are you, though? Jessica interrupted. Are you really happy? Because from where I'm sitting, you look pretty miserable. Miserable. Maybe I was starting to feel that way, but not for the reasons she thought. You know what your problem is? Marcus set down his phone, giving me his full attention for the first time all evening. You think you're too good for regular guys. You want some romance novel hero who doesn't exist. I want someone who respects me. Respect is earned, Dad said firmly, and it goes both ways. What are you bringing to the table besides demands and attitude? Demands and attitude. Wanting basic human decency was apparently unreasonable. I'm bringing myself, I said. My intelligence, my humor, my loyalty, my success, my dreams. Dreams don't keep you warm at night. Mom interrupted. And success doesn't give you children. Maybe she doesn't want children, Sarah suggested with fake concern. Maybe that's why she can't find anyone. Men can sense when a woman doesn't want to be a mother. Is that it? Mom looked horrified. Amber, please tell me you want children. The pressure was suffocating. Every word, every look, every suggestion was designed to make me feel like I was failing at life simply by being myself. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe someday, but I'm not going to have children just because it's expected. Not going to have children, Dad repeated slowly. So you're willing to let our family line die out because you're too selfish to settle down? Selfish? For not sacrificing my happiness for their expectations. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said, Jessica snapped. You'd rather be alone with your standards than give Mom and Dad grandchildren. Then give a good man a chance to love you. A good man would love me as I am. No man is going to love a woman who acts like she doesn't need him, Marcus said. It's biology. Men are protectors and providers. If you don't need protection or providing, what's the point? What's the point? My entire existence reduced to what I could offer a man. The point, I said, my voice shaking now, is partnership. Mutual respect, love, Sarah laughed. Amber, love is compromise. It's sacrifice. It's putting someone else's needs before your own sometimes. When was the last time you did that? When was the last time I put someone else's needs first? Every day at work, managing a team of 12 people. Every holiday dinner, listening to this abuse without fighting back. Every family crisis, being the one they called because I was the responsible one. But apparently none of that counted. You want to know what I really think? Mom set down her napkin, preparing for what felt like a final blow. I think you're scared. Scared? Scared of being vulnerable. Scared of letting someone see the real you. So you hide behind this career woman persona and these impossible standards because it's safer than risking your heart. The real me. The irony was devastating. They wanted me to hide the real me to find love, then accused me of hiding the real me to avoid love. The real me, I said quietly, is someone who knows her worth. Someone who won't settle for less than she deserves. Someone who believes love should be about addition, not subtraction. Addition, subtraction. Dad waved his hand dismissively. You sound like a textbook. Real life isn't that simple. Maybe not, I admitted. But it doesn't have to be this complicated either. This complicated? Jessica's voice was getting higher. Amber, relationships are work. They're not some fantasy where everything is perfect all the time. I never said I wanted perfect. I said I wanted respect. And what we're trying to tell you, Mom said with forced patience, is that respect has to be earned. And right now, the way you're acting, the way you're living, it's not attractive. Not attractive. My confidence, my success, my independence, not attractive. So what you're saying, I said slowly, making sure I understood, is that I need to become someone else entirely to find love. Not someone else? Mom rushed to clarify. Just a better version of yourself. A more approachable version. Approachable. Code for smaller, quieter, more desperate. A version that doesn't threaten male egos? I asked. A version that works with them instead of against them, Dad corrected. Against them. By existing as myself, I was apparently working against all men. The silence stretched on. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for me to capitulate. To agree that yes, I was the problem. Yes, I would change. Yes, I would lower my standards and dim my light and become whoever they thought I should be, but I couldn't. I couldn't sit there one more second, listening to the people who were supposed to love me explain all the ways I was fundamentally unlovable. I need some air, I said, standing up again. Amber, don't be dramatic, Jessica sighed. We're trying to help. This is help? I gestured around the table. Telling me everything about me is wrong? That I'm too old, too picky, too successful, too independent, too masculine, too demanding. That I should be grateful for any man who'll have me? We're trying to be realistic, Sarah said. The dating world is competitive. You're not 25 anymore. Not 25 anymore. as if I'd somehow expired. You know what? I grabbed my purse from the back of my chair. I think I'm done here. Amber, sit down, Mom commanded. We're not finished talking about this. Yes, we are. I headed for the front door. I don't need to listen to this anymore. You're proving our point, Marcus called after me. Running away instead of listening to constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. That's what they called it. I was halfway to the door when Jessica's voice stopped me cold. You know what, Amber? Go ahead and leave. Run away like you always do when things get real. But don't come crying to us when you're 40 and completely alone, wondering why no one wanted you. When no one wanted you? The words followed me as I grabbed my coat from the closet. They echoed in my head as I fumbled for my car keys. They burned in my chest as I reached for the front door handle. 40 and completely alone, wondering why no one wanted me. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was too picky, too independent, too set in my ways. Maybe I had been living in some fantasy world where love was supposed to be easy and natural and mutual. Maybe I really was going to end up alone. I yanked open the front door, ready to escape into the cool evening air, ready to drive home and cry in private and maybe, just maybe, consider whether they had a point after all. But I stopped dead in my tracks, because there, on the front porch, was someone I hadn't expected to see. Someone whose presence changed everything I thought I knew about my life, my choices, and my future. Someone who made every cruel word my family had just spoken feel like the lie it truly was. My hand trembled on the door handle as our eyes met. Behind me, I could hear the family still talking, still dissecting my flaws, still planning my lonely future. But they had no idea who was standing on their front porch. They had no idea that everything they knew about my life was about to be turned completely upside down. And in that moment, looking into familiar eyes that held secrets I'd been keeping for months, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was about to have the last laugh after all. But first, I had to figure out how to explain this, how to explain who this person was and why they were here, and what their presence meant for everything my family thought they knew about me. Because this wasn't just going to shock them, this was going to change everything. Standing there on the porch was someone I never thought I'd see again, someone whose presence made my heart stop and my world tilt on its axis. Someone who represented everything I'd been too afraid to hope for, too scared to believe in, too proud to admit I wanted. Daniel. But not just Daniel. Not the Daniel my family would expect if they knew about him. Not some ordinary guy I'd been casually dating. No, this was Daniel Chen, the billionaire tech entrepreneur whose face had been on the cover of Forbes magazine just last month. Daniel Chen, whose company had just gone public in the biggest IPO of the year. Daniel Chen, who could have any woman in the world, but who was standing on my parents' porch at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, looking at me like I was the only person who mattered. Amber, he said softly. And just hearing my name in his voice made everything my family had said feel like distant noise. Behind me, I could still hear them talking. Marcus was probably making another joke about my impossible standards. Jessica was likely planning my lonely funeral. Mom was probably already mentally redecorating my childhood bedroom for when I inevitably moved back home. Defeated and desperate, but they had no idea. They had no idea that for the past 8 months, I'd been living the kind of love story they claimed didn't exist. The kind where someone sees your strength and calls it beautiful, where your success makes them proud, not threatened, where your independence is something they admire, not something that needs to be fixed. What are you doing here? I whispered, stepping out onto the porch and closing the door behind me. You stopped answering my texts 2 hours ago, he said, his dark eyes searching my face. The last one just said family dinner from hell and then nothing. I was worried. This man who had conquered Silicon Valley, who had built a tech empire from nothing, who commanded rooms full of investors and CEOs, he was worried about me. Daniel, you can't be here, I said, but even as I said it, I felt something inside me breaking open, something that had been locked away for months, hidden from my family, hidden from the world. Why not? He stepped closer and I could smell his cologne, that familiar scent that made me feel safe and desired all at once. Are you ashamed of me? Ashamed of you? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. Daniel, look at you. Look at everything you are. Why would I ever be ashamed of you? Then why? He said gently. Haven't you told your family about us? Us. Such a simple word, but it held 8 months of secret dinners, weekend getaways to his house in the Hamptons, late-night phone calls that lasted until sunrise. 8 months of the most incredible relationship of my life, hidden from everyone because I was terrified of what they'd think. Not terrified they'd disapprove, terrified they'd think I was lying. Because, I said quietly, they'd never believe me. Believe what? That someone like you could want someone like me. The words hung between us in the cooling evening air. Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to something that looked almost like anger. Someone like you? He repeated. Amber, do you have any idea what you're saying? I'm saying I'm realistic. You're saying the woman I'm in love with isn't good enough for me. Is that it? In love with. He'd said it before, whispered it against my skin in the dark privacy of his penthouse apartment. But hearing it now, out here in the real world where my family could potentially hear it, made it feel different. More real, more dangerous. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He was closer now, close enough that I could see the frustration in his eyes. Because I'm trying to understand why the most incredible woman I've ever met thinks she has to hide our relationship like it's something to be ashamed of. The most incredible woman he'd ever met. Daniel had dated actresses, models, heiresses. His last girlfriend before me had been a Victoria's Secret angel who spoke 5 languages and had a PhD in astrophysics. The tabloids had called them the perfect power couple. And yet he was standing here, calling me incredible. You don't understand, I said. My family. They think I'm a failure? They think I'm too picky, too demanding, too set in my ways. They think I'm going to die alone because no man could ever want someone like me. And you believe them? The question hit like a slap. Did I believe them? After 8 months with Daniel, after feeling more loved and valued than I ever had in my life, did I still believe that I was somehow fundamentally unlovable? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe, sometimes. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, studying my face in the porch light. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught in my throat. I came here tonight, he said quietly, because I couldn't wait any longer. Because I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, looking for the perfect moment. And then your text stopped and I realized there is no perfect moment. There's just now. Daniel, I came here to ask your parents' permission to marry you. The world stopped spinning. Everything went silent except for the sound of my heart hammering against my ribs. You. What? I wanted to do this right, he continued. I know how important family is to you, even when they drive you crazy. I wanted their blessing. I wanted to show them that their daughter is the most precious thing in the world to someone, and that someone is going to spend the rest of his life making sure she knows it. Tears were streaming down my face now. Behind me, I could hear the muffled voices of my family, still dissecting my flaws, still planning my lonely future, if they only knew. But now I'm thinking, Daniel said, maybe I should ask you first. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe hiding our relationship means you're not sure about us. I'm sure about us, I said quickly. Daniel, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Then why hide it? The question I'd been avoiding for months. The truth I'd been too scared to admit even to myself. Because, I whispered, I was afraid you'd realize you were too good for me. Too good for you? His voice was incredulous. Amber, you're the smartest, strongest, most compassionate person I know. You challenge me, you inspire me, you make me want to be better every single day. You're not impressed by my money or my success. You're impressed by my character. You see me, not my net worth. How could you possibly think you're not good enough? Because that's what they've always told me. I gestured toward the house. That I'm too much. Too independent, too successful, too demanding. That I need to be smaller, quieter, more grateful for any attention I get. And you believed them. It wasn't a question this time. It was a statement, said with such sadness that it broke something inside me. I tried not to, I said. But when you hear something your whole life, from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, it gets inside your head. Daniel stepped closer, close enough to cup my face in his hands. Listen to me, he said firmly. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. You are everything I never knew I was looking for and everything I never want to lose. Daniel, I fell in love with your strength, not in spite of it. I fell in love with your independence, your intelligence, your refusal to settle for less than you deserve. I fell in love with a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to demand that others recognize it too. But you don't know what they said tonight. You don't know how I don't care what they said. His thumbs wiped away my tears. I care what I'm saying. I care what we build together. I care that you know without any doubt that you are loved exactly as you are. The front door opened behind us, and we both turned to see Jessica peering out. Amber? What's taking so... She stopped mid-sentence when she saw Daniel. Her eyes went wide, taking in his expensive suit, his confident posture, his obvious devotion to me. Oh, she said faintly. Sorry, I didn't know you had... company. Jessica, I said, wiping my face quickly. This is Daniel. Daniel, my sister Jessica. Daniel extended his hand with the same easy confidence he brought to business meetings with Fortune 500 CEOs. It's a pleasure to meet you, he said warmly. Amber talks about you all the time. Jessica shook his hand automatically, but I could see her mind racing. She was probably trying to figure out how her pathetic single sister had managed to attract someone who looked like he belonged in a movie. Daniel, she repeated slowly. Are you two... We're together, I said before I could lose my nerve. We have been for 8 months. 8 months? Jessica's voice pitched higher. You've been seeing someone for 8 months and you never told us? The accusation in her voice was clear. How dare I keep this secret? How dare I let them tear me apart when I had someone? But underneath the accusation, I heard something else. Something that sounded almost like relief. Because if I had a boyfriend, especially one who looked like Daniel, then maybe I wasn't the family failure after all. We were keeping things private, Daniel said smoothly, slipping his arm around my waist in a gesture that was both protective and possessive, getting to know each other without outside pressure. Outside pressure, Jessica repeated. Then louder, Mom, Dad, you need to come out here. Jessica, no. I started, but it was too late. Within seconds, the entire family had crowded onto the porch. Mom, Dad, Marcus, Sarah, all of them staring at Daniel like he was an alien who had just landed in their suburban neighborhood. Everyone, Jessica announced. This is Daniel, Amber's boyfriend, of 8 months. The silence was deafening. Mom was the first to recover, her hostess instincts kicking in despite her obvious shock. Daniel, she said warmly, extending her hand. What a lovely surprise. I'm Patricia, Amber's mother. The pleasure is all mine, Mrs. Hartwell, Daniel replied, shaking her hand. I've heard so much about all of you. Dad was studying Daniel with the suspicious eye of a man trying to figure out if this was some elaborate prank his daughter was playing on them. And what is it you do? Daniel? Dad asked, his tone carefully neutral. I'm in tech, Daniel replied modestly. Software development. Technically true, though it was like saying Bill Gates was in computers. Oh, Mom brightened. That's wonderful. Such a stable field these days. Marcus was looking between Daniel and me like he couldn't quite compute what he was seeing. 8 months, he said slowly. And Amber never mentioned you. We prefer to keep our private life private, Daniel said, tightening his arm around me slightly. But when Amber texted me that she was upset, I couldn't stay away. Upset? Mom looked confused. About what? The question hung in the air like a challenge. How could I explain that I was upset because they'd spent the entire dinner telling me I was fundamentally unlovable? How could I admit that their words had cut so deep that I'd run out of the house in tears? Family dinners can be intense, Daniel said diplomatically. Lots of opinions, lots of advice. Advice? Dad's tone sharpened. What kind of advice? Oh, Sarah jumped in with a nervous laugh. We were just talking about Amber's dating life. Or lack thereof. We had no idea she was seeing anyone. Her dating life, Daniel repeated thoughtfully. And what conclusions did you reach? The question was asked with perfect politeness, but there was something underneath it. Something that made Marcus shift uncomfortably and Sarah look away. We were just concerned, Mom said quickly. She's 30 and we want her to be happy. We want her to find someone who appreciates her. I see. Daniel looked around the group, his gaze lingering on each face. And you were worried that no one could appreciate her? Well, Jessica said with a forced laugh, she can be pretty particular about what she wants. Particular how? Oh, Marcus joined in. High standards. Very independent. Some guys find that intimidating. Intimidating. Daniel nodded slowly. Her intelligence intimidates men? It's not her intelligence, Dad said defensively. It's the attitude. The way she acts like she doesn't need anyone. And that's a problem because the question was so simply asked, but it seemed to stump everyone. Because when put like that, when asked by someone who was clearly successful and confident himself, the idea that my independence was somehow a flaw seemed ridiculous. Well, Mom scrambled to explain, men like to feel needed. They want to be providers, protectors. If a woman acts like she can do everything herself, then she's exactly the kind of woman a real man would want to partner with, Daniel finished. Someone who's with him by choice, not necessity. Someone who brings her own strength to the relationship instead of looking for someone to complete her. The family exchanged glances. This wasn't going the way they'd expected. Of course, Sarah said quickly. We're just thrilled that Amber found someone. Aren't we thrilled? A chorus of agreement rose from the group, but it felt hollow. Forced, like they were trying to convince themselves as much as us. Actually, Daniel said, reaching into his pocket again, I was hoping to speak with Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell privately. If that's possible, Dad straightened, sensing the formality in Daniel's tone. Of course. Kids, give us some space. Marcus, Jessica, and Sarah reluctantly filed back into the house, though I could see them hovering by the window, trying to eavesdrop. Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell, Daniel began, I want you to know that your daughter is the most remarkable woman I've ever met. She's very special, Mom agreed, though she looked nervous about where this was going. She's brilliant, compassionate, strong, and kind. She has principles and she stands by them. She knows her worth, and she doesn't settle for less than she deserves. These aren't flaws. They're the exact qualities that made me fall in love with her. Fall in love with her. Said right there in front of my parents like it was the most natural thing in the world. In love? Mom's voice was faint. Completely, Daniel confirmed. Which is why I'm here tonight. I wanted to ask for your blessing to marry your daughter. The velvet box appeared in his hand again, and this time he opened it. The ring inside was breathtaking. A perfect solitaire diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the porch light and threw rainbows across the small space. It was elegant, timeless, and probably worth more than my parents' house. Mom gasped. Dad's eyebrows shot up to his hairline. You want to marry Amber? Dad asked, as if he needed clarification. I want to spend the rest of my life making sure she knows how valued she is, Daniel said. I want to build a partnership with her, support her dreams, celebrate her successes. I want to be the man who gets to love her exactly as she is, without asking her to change a single thing. Without asking her to change a single thing. The words hit like a revelation. How many times had I been told I needed to be different? Softer, quieter, more accommodating, less demanding, more grateful. And here was Daniel saying he wanted to marry me without changing anything. Mom looked overwhelmed. This is so sudden. We didn't even know you existed until 10 minutes ago. I understand that, Daniel said patiently. And I take full responsibility for that. I should have introduced myself months ago. But Amber was worried you might not approve of me. Not approve? Dad looked incredulous. Son, look at yourself. You're clearly successful, well-educated, polite. Why would we not approve? Because you spent the entire dinner telling her she was too old, too picky, too successful, and too demanding for any man to want her. I thought but didn't say. Because, Daniel said carefully, I got the impression that Amber felt her family thought she was difficult to love. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Difficult to love? Mom looked genuinely confused. We love Amber. We just want what's best for her. And what did you think was best for her? Well, Dad cleared his throat. We thought she should be more flexible, more willing to compromise. Maybe lower her standards a little. Lower her standards. Daniel repeated the words like he was tasting something bitter. From her own family. We were trying to be realistic, Mom said defensively. The dating world is competitive. We didn't want her to end up alone, so your solution was to convince her she was the problem. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, said with such quiet disappointment that both my parents looked ashamed. We never said she was the problem, Dad protested. What did you say? Daniel asked. Tonight, specifically. What advice did you give her about her love life? My parents exchanged glances. They were starting to realize that their helpful advice might not sound so helpful when repeated to the man who wanted to marry me. We suggested she might be too independent, Mom said quietly. That men like to feel needed, and that she might intimidate men with her success, Dad added reluctantly. Anything else? The silence stretched on. They were remembering all the cruel things they'd said, all the ways they'd systematically torn apart my confidence and self-worth. We were just trying to help, Mom said finally, her voice small. Help her by making her believe she was unlovable? That's not what we meant, but it's what you accomplished. Daniel's voice was still calm, still polite, but there was steel underneath it now. Do you have any idea what it's been like, watching the woman I love doubt herself because her own family convinced her she wasn't worth loving? We never said she wasn't worth loving, Dad said, but he sounded less certain now. You told her she was too old, too picky, too independent, too successful, and too demanding. You told her she needed to lower her standards and be grateful for any man who'd have her. You told her she was shopping in the discount bin. Daniel's voice never rose, but each word hit like a bullet. How is that different from telling her she's not worth loving? My parents looked stricken. They were hearing their words reflected back at them, and for the first time, they were understanding how destructive they'd been. We didn't mean it that way, Mom whispered. I believe you, Daniel said gently, but impact matters more than intent. And the impact was that the most incredible woman I've ever met almost convinced herself she wasn't good enough for anyone. We just wanted her to be happy, Dad said weakly. She is happy. She's brilliant at her job. She has wonderful friends. She's financially independent. She travels. She has hobbies she's passionate about. She was already happy. What she didn't have was a family that celebrated her happiness instead of making her feel guilty for it. The truth of it hit like a physical blow. I had been happy. My life had been full and rich and meaningful. It was only when I came home, only when I sat at this table and listened to their disappointment, that I started to doubt myself. And now, Daniel continued, she has someone who sees her strength as a gift, not a flaw. Someone who's proud of her success instead of threatened by it. Someone who wants to add to her happiness, not replace it. He looked down at the ring box in his hand, then back at my parents. So I'm asking for your blessing, not because she needs it, but because she wants it. Because despite everything, she loves you and wants you to be part of our future. But understand this, I'm going to marry her with or without your approval. The only question is whether you want to be part of the celebration or part of the regret. The ultimatum was delivered so politely, so matter-of-factly, that it took a moment to sink in. Dad straightened his shoulders, and for a moment I thought he might refuse. might dig in his heels and insist that Daniel was wrong, that their advice had been sound, that I really did need to change. Instead, he extended his hand. "You have my blessing," he said quietly, "and my apology. To both of you." Mom was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said, looking at me. "We were wrong, so wrong. We should have been building you up, not tearing you down." "We should have been telling you how proud we are," Dad added. "How lucky any man would be to have you." "We should have been celebrating who you are instead of trying to change you," Mom continued. "Can you forgive us?" I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. I saw regret. I saw understanding. I saw love that had gotten twisted into something harmful, but was still, at its core, love. "Yes," I said softly. "I can forgive you." Daniel smiled and pulled me closer. "So," he said, "now that we have your blessing." He dropped to one knee right there on the porch, in front of my parents, with my siblings undoubtedly watching from the window. "Amber Michelle Hartwell," he said, looking up at me with eyes full of love, "you are my best friend, my greatest love, and my favorite person in the entire world. You challenge me to be better while loving me exactly as I am. You make me laugh. You make me think. And you make me want to build a future that's worthy of both of us." The ring caught the light again, throwing sparkles across the porch like fallen stars. "Will you marry me?" Through my tears, through the overwhelming emotion of the moment, through the shock of seeing my family's entire perception of me shift in the span of 20 minutes, I managed one word. "Yes." The ring slid onto my finger like it had been made for me, which, knowing Daniel, it probably had been. Mom was sobbing now, but they were happy tears. Dad was beaming with pride. From inside the house, I could hear Jessica squealing with excitement. "Welcome to the family," Mom said, hugging Daniel tightly. "And thank you." "For what?" "For seeing what we should have seen all along. For loving our daughter the way she deserves to be loved." Daniel smiled. "It's not hard to love someone who's already perfect. Perfect. Not too much, not too demanding, not too independent. Perfect." As my family crowded around us with congratulations and questions and excitement, as Daniel fielded their curiosities about our relationship with patient good humor, as Mom immediately started planning an engagement party, I realized something profound. I hadn't needed to change to find love. I had needed to find someone who could see my worth. And once I had that, once I had someone who celebrated my strength instead of fearing it, everything else had fallen into place. Even my family was seeing me differently now, not because I had changed, but because Daniel's love had given them permission to love me as I was too. But there was still one more surprise waiting. One more revelation that would shock them even more than Daniel's proposal. Because as wonderful as this moment was, they still didn't know the whole truth about who Daniel really was. They still didn't know that the man who wanted to marry their daughter wasn't just successful in tech. He was one of the most powerful men in the world. And when they found out tomorrow morning, when Jessica inevitably Googled his name and discovered exactly who her sister was marrying, this perfect family moment was going to explode into something even bigger. But for now, for this perfect moment on the porch where I'd been torn down just an hour ago, I was content to be surrounded by love and celebration and the promise of a future with a man who saw me, really saw me, and loved everything he found. The rest of the truth could wait until tomorrow. The morning after changed everything. I woke up in Daniel's penthouse apartment, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. My engagement ring caught the light as I reached for my phone, and for a moment, everything felt perfect and dreamlike. Then I saw the missed calls. 17 of them, all from Jessica, and the texts. Oh, the texts. "Amber, call me now." "Are you kidding me right now? Daniel Chen." "The Daniel Chen? Do you have any idea who you're marrying?" "Mom is having a heart attack. Call me now." My stomach dropped. They'd figured it out. Daniel was in the shower, humming some tune I didn't recognize, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to hit our lives. I sat on the edge of his massive bed, staring at my phone, trying to figure out how to handle this, because the thing was, I'd gotten so comfortable in our bubble. For 8 months, we'd existed in this perfect space where Daniel was just Daniel, not the billionaire CEO whose company had revolutionized cloud computing, not the man whose net worth had been splashed across magazine covers, not the entrepreneur who'd been named to Forbes's 30 Under 30 list 3 years running. He was just the man who brought me coffee exactly how I liked it, who remembered that I preferred Thai food when I was stressed, who listened to me complain about difficult clients and never tried to fix my problems unless I asked for advice. But now my family knew, and everything was about to get infinitely more complicated. My phone rang again. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. "Oh my God, Amber." Jessica's voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Good morning to you too, Jess." "Don't good morning me." I couldn't sleep all night, so I decided to look up your mysterious boyfriend online. "Do you know what I found?" I could hear the hysteria building in her voice. "I'm guessing you found more than you expected." "More than I expected?" "Amber, he's worth $12 billion. Billion, with a B." $12 billion? The number sounded absurd when said out loud like that. His company just went public for the largest IPO in tech history. He owns houses in 6 countries. He has a yacht. He dated a literal supermodel. Jessica. He was on the cover of Time magazine last year as one of the most influential people under 40. There are entire documentaries about him. He's spoken at the World Economic Forum. I could hear other voices in the background. Mom, Dad, Marcus. The whole family was apparently having a collective meltdown. And you've been dating him for 8 months and didn't think to mention that your boyfriend is basically Jeff Bezos. He's not basically Jeff Bezos, I said calmly. He's Daniel. The same Daniel who proposed to me last night. The same Daniel who... Jessica's voice cracked. Amber, do you understand what this means? It means I'm marrying the man I love. It means you're marrying one of the richest men in America. It means you're going to be a billionaire. It means nothing changes, I interrupted. Jessica, I fell in love with Daniel before I knew about any of that. And he fell in love with me when I was just a marketing director from suburban Minnesota. The money doesn't change who we are. Doesn't change, Jessica sputtered. Amber, everything changes. Everything. Do you know what people are going to say? Do you know what the media is going to do when they find out? I hadn't thought about the media. My stomach clenched. Mom wants to talk to you, Jessica said, and before I could protest, my mother's voice was on the line. Amber Michelle Hartwell, Mom said in the same tone she'd used when I was 12 and had broken her favorite vase. You have some explaining to do. Mom, do you have any idea what I've been going through since 6 this morning? Mrs. Patterson from across the street called to tell me she saw a man who looked like that tech billionaire from the news leaving our house last night. Then Jessica started Googling, and now I'm looking at pictures of my daughter's fiancé on the Forbes website. The shower had stopped running. Daniel would be out any minute, and then I'd have to explain why my family was having a collective breakdown. Mom, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you let us think you were some lonely spinster when you were secretly dating a man who could buy our entire neighborhood? Can you explain why you let us give you advice about lowering your standards when you were engaged to someone who's been voted most eligible bachelor by 3 different magazines? I'm not engaged to his magazine covers, I said. I'm engaged to Daniel. Don't get smart with me, young lady. This is serious. Do you know what this means for our family? Our family. Not my happiness, not my future. Our family. What does it mean, Mom? It means everything is different now. Everything we said last night? Oh God, Amber, what must he think of us? There it was. The real concern. Not that I'd hidden my relationship. Not that I'd been hurt by their words. But what Daniel might think of them. He thinks you love me and want what's best for me, I said carefully, which is what you told him. But before that, all those terrible things we said about you being too picky, too demanding, about settling for anyone who'd have you. About shopping in the discount bin? I added quietly. Mom made a sound like she was choking. Oh God. Oh God, we said that in front of a billionaire. We said our daughter was damaged goods in front of one of the most successful men in the world. Mom. He must think we're horrible people. He must think we don't deserve you. And there it was, the twisted logic that had governed my family my entire life. When they thought I was just a successful marketing director, I wasn't good enough for their standards. But now that I was engaged to a billionaire, they weren't good enough for his. Daniel doesn't judge people by their bank accounts, I said. If he did, he never would have fallen in love with me. But sweetheart, Mom's voice was getting higher. You don't understand. This changes everything. You can't just marry someone like that. There are considerations, prenups and publicity and… Oh God, are there going to be paparazzi at our house? Paparazzi. I hadn't thought about that either. Patricia, let me talk to her. Dad's voice came on the line. Amber, we need to discuss this situation rationally. What situation, Dad? This engagement. To this man. This very wealthy, very public man. You gave your blessing last night, I reminded him. That was before I knew he was… who he is. This is complicated, Amber. Much more complicated than a normal engagement. Why? Because… Dad struggled for words. Because people are going to talk. They're going to say things about you, about us. They're going to wonder what a man like that sees in a girl like you. A girl like you. Even now, even after everything, they couldn't quite believe I was worthy of love. And what do you think a man like that sees in a girl like me? I asked. The silence stretched on. Dad was probably realizing how his words sounded, but the damage was done. I didn't mean… You meant exactly what you said. Even now, even after meeting Daniel and seeing how much he loves me, you still think I'm somehow not good enough. That's not what I said. It's what you implied. You're worried about what people will think, what they'll say about why he chose me. You're still convinced there must be something wrong with this picture. Daniel appeared in the doorway, a towel around his waist, hair damp from the shower. He took one look at my face and immediately crossed to sit beside me on the bed. What's wrong? He asked quietly. My family found out who you are, I said. Understanding flickered in his eyes. Ah, Dad, I said into the phone. I have to go. Amber, wait. We need to talk about this. As a family. Can you come over? Can you bring him? His name is Daniel. And no, we can't come over right now. But we need to figure this out. We need to discuss how to handle this. Handle what? The publicity. The attention. What are we going to tell people? The truth? I suggested. That I'm marrying the man I love? But Amber, you don't understand. Once this gets out, everyone is going to want to know about us. About how you met, about our family. We need to be prepared. As if my engagement was a natural disaster we needed to weather. I'll call you later, I said and hung up. Daniel was watching me carefully. How bad is it? They found out about your net worth and are having a collective panic attack. About the money. About what people will think. About the media attention. About whether they're going to look bad in comparison, Daniel sighed. This is why you wanted to keep it secret. Part of it. I leaned against his shoulder. I knew this would happen. I knew once they found out who you really are, everything would become about that instead of about us. And now? Now they're worried about how they're going to look when people find out the family that was telling their daughter to lower her standards is related to someone marrying a billionaire. Do you regret it? Going public? I looked down at my ring, then back at his face. This man who could have anyone in the world who had chosen me. Who had stood on my parents' porch and defended me against their cruelty. Who had asked for their blessing not because I needed it, but because he knew it mattered to me. No, I said firmly. I don't regret it. I regret that they can't just be happy for me without making it about them. But I don't regret finally being able to be open about us. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Need to talk ASAP. This is insane. Then Sarah. OMG Amber, call me. I have so many questions. Then Jessica again. The internet is going crazy. There are already articles being written. Articles? I looked at Daniel in alarm. He grimaced. My publicist probably put out a statement. Standard procedure when there's a major life change. What kind of statement? Daniel reached for his own phone and scrolled through his messages. Let's see. Tech entrepreneur Daniel Chen announces engagement to marketing executive Amber Hartwell. Pretty basic stuff. Marketing executive? I repeated. Not desperate spinster who finally managed to trap a man. Never that, Daniel said seriously. Amber, you need to understand something. In my world, in business, you're incredibly impressive. You run a team of 12 people. You've increased your company's revenue by 30% over 3 years. You have an MBA from Northwestern. You're not some nobody who got lucky. You're a successful professional in your own right. Try telling my family that. I did. Last night, my phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Should I answer it? Probably not, Daniel said. Once the news breaks, you're going to get calls from reporters, bloggers, people wanting statements. The reality of what my life was about to become was starting to sink in. I wasn't just engaged to Daniel anymore. I was engaged to Daniel Chen, public figure, billionaire, media target. Hey, Daniel said softly, lifting my chin so I had to look at him. Are you okay? I think so. It's just a lot. We can handle it together. We'll hire you a publicist if you want one. We'll set boundaries about what we will and won't discuss publicly. We'll protect our privacy as much as possible. And my family? What about them? They're going to be insufferable. They're going to want to be part of this world they think you represent. They're going to act like they always supported me. Are you worried they're going to use our relationship for their own benefit? I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but now that he said it. Maybe. Yeah, probably. Then we set boundaries there too. We control how much access they have to our life. We decide what events they're invited to, what information they get about our business. That sounds harsh. That sounds necessary. Amber, I've been in the public eye for years. I've seen how people change when money and fame are involved. Even family members. As if on cue, my phone rang again. This time it was Jessica, calling from Mom's number. You should probably take this, Daniel said. Get it over with, I answered. Hi, Mom. Amber. Mom's voice was bright and excited now, completely different from the panic of an hour ago. Sweetheart, I've been thinking and I owe you such an apology. For what? For not seeing how incredible you are? For not realizing that of course a successful man would fall in love with you. You're brilliant and beautiful and successful. Why wouldn't a billionaire want to marry you? The complete 180 in her tone was jarring. This morning I was a girl they were worried wasn't good enough for a billionaire. Now I was brilliant and beautiful and obviously worthy of one, Mom, and we need to start planning. This isn't going to be just any wedding. This is going to be the social event of the year. We need to think about venues and guest lists and media management. 24 hours ago, she was telling me to lower my standards. Now she was talking about media management. We don't need media management for our wedding, I said. Of course you do. Honey, you're marrying Daniel Chen. This is going to be covered by every magazine and newspaper in the country. We need to be strategic about it. Strategic. Our wedding needed to be strategic. I want to help with the planning, Jessica's voice came through the phone. I have some ideas about themes and color schemes that would photograph well. For the media coverage of my strategic wedding. And your father thinks we should hire a publicist for the family, Mom continued. Someone to help us handle the attention we're going to get. The attention you're going to get? Well, of course. We're going to be the in-laws of one of the most famous men in America. People are going to want to interview us, to know our story. Our story. The story of how they spent years tearing down my self-esteem and telling me I wasn't good enough for anyone. Mom, I said carefully, what story are you planning to tell? The true story, of course. About how proud we've always been of you, how we always knew you were destined for greatness. How we raised you to be independent and strong and successful. The revisionist history was breathtaking. In the span of 12 hours, they'd gone from mocking my independence to claiming credit for it. That's not what happened, I said quietly. What do you mean? Last night at dinner. You told me I was too independent, too successful, too demanding. You told me I was shopping in the discount bin and should be grateful for any man who'd have me. Silence. Amber, Mom said finally, you're being dramatic. We were just having a normal family conversation about relationships. A normal conversation where you systematically destroyed my self-confidence? We were trying to help. By telling me everything about me was wrong? We never said everything about you was wrong. You said my independence was unattractive. You said my success intimidated men. You said my standards were too high and I was too old and too set in my ways. Well, Mom's voice was getting defensive. Maybe some of that advice was misguided. But it came from a place of love. Did it? Because it felt like it came from a place of disappointment. Of course we weren't disappointed in you. We're proud of you. We've always been proud of you. The gaslighting was incredible. They were trying to rewrite history in real time. If you were proud of me, why did you spend 2 hours telling me I needed to change everything about myself to find love? We weren't telling you to change everything. You told me to be softer, quieter, more feminine, less professional. You told me to hide my intelligence and my income. You told me to lower my standards and be grateful for any attention I got. Amber, you're twisting our words. Am I? Daniel was there. He heard what you said about me, another silence. What? What did he say about it? Mom asked nervously. He said impact matters more than intent. And the impact was that you made me feel unlovable. Oh, sweetheart, we never meant... I know you didn't mean to. But you did it anyway. Daniel squeezed my hand supportively. He'd been listening to the whole conversation, and I could see the anger in his eyes. Not at me, but for me. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. Daniel and I are going to plan our wedding the way we want it. We're going to decide what information we share publicly and what we keep private. And you're going to respect those boundaries. But surely we should coordinate our media strategy. There is no our media strategy. Mom, there's Daniel's publicist handling official statements, and there's our family keeping our private business private. But what if reporters ask us questions? Then you tell them you're proud of me and happy for us. That's it. You don't tell the story of how you always knew I was destined for greatness, because that's not true. You don't claim credit for raising me to be independent, because you just spent years trying to make me less so. Amber, that's not fair. What's not fair is trying to rewrite history now that my life choices have been validated. What's not fair is pretending you supported me when you spent years making me doubt myself. We're your family, Mom said, her voice small now. We love you. I know you love me. But love isn't enough anymore. I need respect. I need you to acknowledge what actually happened and commit to doing better. Of course we'll do better. Will you? Because in the last hour, you've gone from panic about whether I'm good enough for Daniel to excitement about the social status of being related to him. You haven't once asked me how I'm feeling about all this attention. You haven't asked if I'm okay with having our relationship in the public eye. You've just immediately started planning how to capitalize on it. The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. That's not... Mom started, then stopped. We just want to be supportive. Then support me by respecting my choices. Support me by letting Daniel and me control our own narrative. Support me by being proud of who I am instead of being excited about who I'm marrying. We are proud of who you are. Are you? Because yesterday you told me who I am wasn't good enough. Today you're telling the world how proud you've always been. Which is true. Another long silence. We've made mistakes, Mom admitted finally. We've said things we shouldn't have said. We've made you feel less than. And that was wrong. It was the closest thing to a real apology I'd ever gotten from them. But we're trying to make up for it now, she continued. We're trying to show you how proud we are. By claiming credit for who I became despite your efforts to change me, that's not what we're doing. It's exactly what you're doing. Mom, if you want to make up for the damage you've done, start by being honest about it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't act like you always supported me. Acknowledge that you hurt me and then do better going forward. And if we do that, if we acknowledge our mistakes and do better, then you get to be part of our lives. You get to celebrate with us, support us, be proud of us. But it has to be real this time. It has to be about us, not about what we represent for your social status. It is about you. Is it? Because the first thing you talked about was media strategy and wedding photography and hiring publicists for yourselves. You didn't ask if I was happy. You didn't ask if I was scared about the attention. You didn't ask what I needed from you. What do you need from us? Dad's voice came on the line. The question caught me off guard. In 30 years, I couldn't remember him ever asking me what I needed. I need you to love me for who I am, not who I'm marrying. I need you to be proud of what I've accomplished, not what I'm about to inherit. I need you to respect my choices even when you don't understand them. We can do that, Dad said quietly. Can you? Because you've spent my entire adult life trying to change me. Can you really just stop? We can try. We can learn. We can do better. And can you accept that this relationship, this engagement, this wedding, it's about Daniel and me, not about our family becoming famous? Yes, Mom said. We can accept that. And can you trust that we know what we're doing? That we don't need you to manage our image or plan our media strategy or tell us how to handle our private life. That's harder, Dad admitted. We want to help. We want to be involved. Be involved by being supportive. Be involved by being excited for us, not excited for yourselves. Be involved by asking how we're doing, not by planning how to benefit from our relationship. Okay, Mom said. Okay, we can do that. Can you really? Because this is going to be hard for all of us. There's going to be media attention, public scrutiny, people picking apart every aspect of our relationship and our families. It's going to be tempting to try to control the narrative or capitalize on the attention. We won't, Dad said firmly. We'll follow your lead. And you'll be honest about our family dynamics? You won't pretend you've always been supportive? We'll be honest, Mom promised. We'll acknowledge our mistakes. And you'll let us set boundaries about what parts of our lives you have access to? Yes, they said in unison. I looked at Daniel, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, I said. Then we can move forward. But this is your last chance. If you go back to trying to control me or change me or use my relationship for your own benefit, we're done. I won't let you hurt me anymore. You won't have to, Mom said, crying now. We love you, Amber. We're proud of you. We're sorry we made you feel otherwise. I love you too, I said, and meant it. But love isn't enough anymore. I need respect. I need support. I need you to see me as I actually am and celebrate that person. We will, Dad promised. We'll do better. After I hung up, Daniel and I sat in silence for a moment. Think they mean it? He asked. I think they want to mean it. Whether they can actually follow through remains to be seen. And if they can't? Then we'll handle it, together, Daniel smiled. Together. I like the sound of that. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. I'm sorry for everything we said last night. You deserve to be loved exactly as you are. Can't wait to celebrate with you. Then one from Marcus. Congrats, sis. Always knew you were too good for us mere mortals. Then Sarah. Welcome to the family, Daniel. Can't wait to get to know you better. Small steps, but steps in the right direction. So what now? I asked Daniel. Now we plan a wedding. Now we build a life together. Now we ignore everyone who has opinions about our relationship and focus on what matters. Us. And the media attention? We'll handle it. We'll be selective about what we share, protective of what we don't. We'll let people speculate and gossip, but we won't let them dictate how we live. And my family? We'll give them a chance to do better. If they take it, great. If they don't, we'll love them from a distance. I looked around the penthouse, our penthouse, I supposed, and tried to imagine what our life would look like now. Would we need security? Would I be able to go grocery shopping without being photographed? Would people always wonder what a billionaire saw in a regular girl from Minnesota? Hey, Daniel said, reading my thoughts. You know what the best part of all this is? What? Now I get to love you in public. Now I get to hold your hand at dinner without looking over our shoulders. Now I get to tell everyone I meet that I'm the luckiest man in the world because you said yes. Even when people question what you see in me? Especially then, Because I get to tell them about your intelligence, your strength, your kindness, your humor. I get to share how proud I am of you instead of hiding it. And when they ask if I'm just with you for your money, then I get to tell them about the woman who paid for our first 3 dates because she didn't want me to feel pressured to impress her. The woman who fell asleep during my TED Talk because she'd been working 18-hour days to meet a deadline. The woman who still insists on splitting grocery bills because she wants to contribute equally to our life together. I laughed despite myself. I did not fall asleep during your TED Talk. You absolutely did. And it was the moment I knew I was in love with you. Because I fell asleep? Because you were so secure in yourself, so unimpressed by my public persona, that you treated me like any other boyfriend who was boring you with work stories. Your work stories aren't boring. They are when you've been awake for 36 hours straight. We sat quietly for a moment, watching the city wake up below us. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For loving me. For standing up to my family. For making me feel like I'm enough exactly as I am. You are enough. You're more than enough. You're everything. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Mom. Your father and I have been talking. We want to take you and Daniel to dinner this week. Our treat. No family drama, no advice, no agenda. Just us getting to know the man our daughter loves. Is that okay? I showed Daniel the text. What do you think? I asked. I think, he said. That sounds like a good place to start. I texted back. Yes, we'd like that. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I believed that maybe, just maybe, my family was going to be okay. Maybe they really could learn to love me as I was instead of trying to change me into who they thought I should be. Maybe I really could have it all. The love of my life, the career I'd built, the independence I'd fought for, and a family that supported all of it instead of trying to tear it down. Maybe those impossible standards weren't so impossible after all. Maybe I'd just been holding out for someone who could meet them, and a family who could learn to celebrate them. 6 months later, Daniel and I were married in a small ceremony at his house in the Hamptons. My family was there and they were perfect. They didn't try to manage the media coverage, didn't attempt to capitalize on the attention, didn't offer unsolicited advice about my dress or my vows or my choices. They just celebrated us. They welcomed Daniel into the family with genuine warmth. They told stories about my childhood that highlighted my determination and independence instead of complaining about my stubbornness, and when the inevitable gossip magazines ran stories, questioning what a tech billionaire saw in a regular marketing director from Minnesota, my family's response was perfect. We see what he sees, an incredible woman who deserves to be loved exactly as she is. It turns out that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are capable of the greatest growth. Sometimes love really can overcome years of damage. Sometimes families can learn to do better. And sometimes, just sometimes, holding out for what you deserve instead of settling for what you're told you should want leads to everything you never dared to dream of. My name is Amber Chen now, and I've never been happier to be exactly who I am.